I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Jake, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for almost 5 years. We met in college, hit it off pretty quickly, and honestly, I thought we were solid. She's beautiful, confident, a little bit bitchy, but in a way that I found sexy. She's always been outspoken, kinda blunt, and she loved to tease me. We were planning to get married next month, and everything seemed perfect, or so I thought. The signs started showing up a few weeks ago. She'd be more distant, spending more time on her phone, laughing at texts I couldn't see. She'd brush it off, say I was imagining things. But I knew better. Women don't suddenly become secretive without reason. Still, I didn't want to jump to conclusions, not yet. I trusted her, even if sometimes that trust felt a little fragile. It got worse when I started noticing she was acting weird about her phone. She'd hide it when I entered the room, or she'd be quick to delete messages if I glanced her way. I didn't want to be paranoid, but my gut told me something wasn't right. Then last weekend I was at her place helping set up for a friend's dinner and I saw her phone lying on the table. I happened to catch a glimpse of a message, something about "can't wait to see you tonight" from her number. My stomach dropped. I didn't recognize the name, but that wasn't the point. I didn't say anything right then. Honestly, I was frozen. My mind raced. Who was this person? When did she start texting him? I asked myself if maybe it was just a friend, a coworker, but the tone of the messages, they were intimate, teasing, flirtatious. It was the kind of stuff that people only send if they're doing more than just chatting. That night I stayed quiet, pretending everything was normal, but I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to that message, that small, seemingly insignificant glimpse that tore a hole right through my chest. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs. How I never suspected Lisa of betraying me this way. I mean, we fought sometimes, yeah, but I never thought she'd cheat on me, not before our wedding day. The next morning, I decided I couldn't keep pretending like I didn't see that message. I had to confront her. I was nervous, angry, hurt, but I needed to hear it from her, whatever it was. I brought up the phone, kept my voice steady, and asked her who that guy was. She looked at me, a little annoyed, and then laughed a little like I was overreacting. Typical Lisa, acting like I was making a big deal out of nothing. That's when she started lying. She said it was just a coworker, just some guy she's friendly with, no big deal. That she was planning to tell me about the messages but never got around to it because she was busy. But I didn't buy it. I could see right through her bullshit. She's always been good at lying, good at pretending everything's fine when she's hiding something. I knew she was hiding something now. That's when it hit me, this wasn't just a flirtation. She was cheating. And it wasn't just a one-time thing. She'd been sneaking around behind my back for who knows how long. That's where I'm at now. My whole world feels like it's upside down, and I'm left questioning everything I thought was real, my relationship, her feelings, my trust. I still haven't decided what I'll do next, but I know one thing. I'm not the same guy I was yesterday. After I confronted her, Lisa just rolled her eyes and dismissed my concerns like I was overreacting. She said I was imagining things, that I was paranoid, that I was insecure. She told me I was crazy for even bringing it up, that she'd never cheat on me, especially not on the eve of our wedding. She looked me right in the eyes and lied through her teeth, acting like I was the one with the problem. Honestly, I was furious. Not just because she was cheating, but because she was so good at lying, so good at making me doubt myself. I felt that familiar wave of helplessness, like I was losing my mind. Was I really that insecure? Had I missed all the signs? Or was she just a master manipulator? I didn't know anymore. All I knew was that I couldn't believe she'd do this to me right before we were supposed to get married. That day, I avoided her. I couldn't look at her without feeling sick. I kept thinking about the messages I saw, the way she lied so effortlessly, and how I almost walked down the aisle without knowing the truth. I started questioning everything. Our memories, the promise of forever, whether she ever truly loved me or if I was just fooling myself. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I had just found out. I kept replaying that moment when I saw her texts, every word, every emoji, every flirtatious line, and I felt broken. But somewhere deep inside, I knew I couldn't let her get away with it, not without a fight. I was angry, yes, but also determined. If she thought she could cheat on me and then just brush it off, she was dead wrong. I decided I needed to gather evidence, figure out just how deep this rabbit hole went, and then decide what to do. I started digging through her social media, her emails, anything I could find. I didn't want to just confront her again. I wanted to know everything before I made a move. I also reached out to my best friend, Mike, because I needed someone to talk to. I did tell him everything at first, just enough to get his opinion. He's been my buddy for years, always had my back, and I knew if I told him the truth, he'd help me figure out the next step. I told him I had some doubts, that Lisa was acting weird and that I found some messages from her that didn't sit right with me. His reaction, he was furious. Said Lisa was a bitch for cheating on me, especially before our wedding. Said it was obvious she didn't respect me or our relationship. I appreciated that honesty because I was starting to question whether I was blowing things out of proportion. But I also felt embarrassed, like I had let someone else manipulate me into trusting her so blindly. Over the next few days, I kept my distance from Lisa. She kept acting like everything was fine, like I was just overthinking it. But I noticed her phone was more glued to her hand than ever, and she'd get defensive if I asked about where she was or who she was talking to. I felt like I was losing my mind, caught in this emotional prison where I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then I found out she'd been secretly meeting up with this guy, her coworker she claimed, more than once. I saw the messages where she'd joke about saving her for me, but then in the same breath she'd flirt with him, call him hot, and talk about how good sex with him was. That was the final nail. I knew this wasn't some innocent friendship. She was cheating full on and she didn't care who she hurt. That's when I started planning my next move. I needed to confront her again, but this time with everything laid bare. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. I needed her to face her lies, her betrayal, and then I had to decide what I was going to do about it. I wasn't going to be some schmuck who gets cheated on and just takes it. Not anymore. Not after what I'd found out. The day I decided to confront her again, I was a mess. My mind was racing with 1,000 thoughts, anger, hurt, betrayal, all tangled up into one big knot. I couldn't sleep the night before. I kept going over everything I'd discovered, trying to come up with a way to get her to admit the truth. I knew she'd probably lie her way out of it again, but I also knew I couldn't keep pretending I was okay with this. When she got home that afternoon, I was already waiting in the living room. She walked in, all confident, the usual smirk on her face. She knew she'd been caught, but she played it cool, acting like nothing was wrong. I looked at her and just lost it. I told her I knew everything about the messages, the meetings, the lies. Her face twisted into a sneer and she tried to deny it. Said I was crazy, that I was imagining things, that I was just jealous because she was hot and desirable. That's when I saw her real attitude, bitchy, dismissive, like she had no respect for me at all. I pressed her harder, asked her why she did it, how long she'd been cheating, who this guy was. She rolled her eyes and said she didn't owe me any explanations, that she was tired of me accusing her of things she wasn't doing. She even dared to say I was controlling, that I did trust her, that I was just insecure. That hurt more than anything, her acting like she was the victim when I was the one betrayed, the one who loved her. I told her I wasn't going to be the fool anymore, that I deserved honesty, and that I was done accepting her bullshit. She scoffed and said she was tired of my accusations, that she had never cheated, that I was seeing things, that I was paranoid, jealous, insecure. She looked me dead in the eyes and lied that she'd never done anything with her coworker, that those messages were just jokes, that I was blowing everything out of proportion. But I knew better. I could see her lying through her teeth. Her eyes darted, her voice shaky. She knew I knew the truth and she was trying to cover her ass. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt like I was falling apart inside. I'd loved her, trusted her, and now I was just disposable in her eyes. She didn't care that she was destroying everything we'd built. She was a bitch who only cared about herself. That realization hit me hard, how someone so beautiful and confident could be so selfish, so manipulative. I wanted to scream, to cry, to shake her, but I kept my composure. I needed to get out of there before I lost it completely. After she stormed out of the room, I sat down on the couch, my head in my hands. I felt numb. I kept asking myself how I didn't see it sooner, how I missed all the warning signs. And then I felt this deep, aching sadness, like I'd lost the girl I thought I knew, the girl I wanted to marry. I felt betrayed, used, stupid for trusting her. All my life, I'd believed in honesty, loyalty, and love, and now I realized I'd been fooling myself. That night, I stayed up long after she went to bed, scrolling through her messages again and again. I wanted to believe the lies she told, but I couldn't. I knew the truth was staring right at me. I was angry at her, sure, but I was also angry at myself for ever trusting her so blindly. It was like I'd been blindfolded and she'd just taken a giant knife and stabbed me right in the heart. I knew I had to make a choice. I could try to work this out, forgive her, forget everything and pretend it never happened. Or I could cut her loose and start over. Honestly, I didn't see any other options. The woman I thought I knew was gone. Reconciliation, not a chance. I felt like I was already broken beyond repair, but I also knew I wasn't going to let her ruin me completely. I owed it to myself to take control of this mess, even if it meant ending everything. I just didn't know what the future held, only that nothing would be the same again. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind was a tornado of confusion, rage, and heartbreak. I couldn't believe I was sitting here, questioning everything, my relationship, my worth, even the foundation of what I thought love was. Part of me still wanted to believe she'd somehow deny everything, that maybe it was all a mistake or a misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew better. The evidence was clear, and her denial was just another way for her to manipulate the situation. I got up, went straight to my computer, and started digging into her social media history, her texts, her emails. I needed to see if there was more I had missed. I wasn't trying to be obsessive or paranoid, I just needed the truth. What I found confirmed my worst fears. There were messages, photos, even videos, all from her coworker, Matt. They'd been meeting secretly, exchanging explicit messages, talking about the sex they'd been having, how good it was, how much she loved the thrill of sneaking around behind my back. It was sick. I felt sick reading it all. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. Lisa had been lying to my face all along, telling me she was just working late or out with friends. But she was with him, doing things I didn't even want to think about. The worst part, she'd lied so convincingly, played the innocent victim when I confronted her. Now, seeing everything laid out, I realized she'd never loved me. She just wanted to have her cake and eat it too, her perfect life with me and her secret sex with him. I knew I couldn't keep this bottled up. I had to confront her again, this time with everything I'd uncovered. I called her at work, told her I knew the truth, and asked her to come home. When she arrived, she looked nervous, defensive. I told her I'd seen everything, the messages, the photos, the dates. I told her I knew she'd been cheating on me with her coworker, Matt, for months. Her face twisted into a mix of anger and annoyance, and she tried to deny it again. Said it was just sex, that it didn't mean anything. She said she'd never loved me, that she was just bored and wanted some excitement. Said she'd been planning to tell me but didn't know how to break it to me. I was done listening to her lies. I told her I didn't want her excuses, I just wanted her gone. I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak, like I'd just been punched in the stomach. The woman I'd trusted for years had been lying to my face, cheating on me, and all the while acting like I was the one at fault. I told her to pack her bags and leave. She tried to argue, but I didn't care. I told her I was done, that she'd betrayed everything I believed in. That night she left and I was finally alone with my thoughts. That night was the worst of all. I sat there staring at the empty apartment, replaying everything, the good times, the bad, the lies, the sex. I felt like I'd been shattered into a million pieces. All the plans we'd made, all the promises I'd trusted, gone in an instant. I was furious at her, furious at myself for ever trusting her, furious at Matt for being a lowlife. Mostly I was just hurt, so deeply hurt that I didn't know how I was going to get through it. In the days that followed, I tried to process everything. I realized I was angry, but I was also exhausted. I felt numb most of the time, like my emotions had been drained. I knew I had to decide whether to stay and fight for something that was clearly broken, or walk away and try to rebuild my life from scratch. Honestly, I didn't know what was worse, staying and trying to fix what was beyond repair, or leaving it all behind and starting over. All I knew was that I couldn't live like this anymore, knowing she lied, cheated, and used me like some pawn in her game of sex and lies. It was a defining moment, one that forced me to face the reality that I had been blind. But it also made me realize I deserved better. I deserved someone who truly loved me, someone who wouldn't betray me for some fleeting thrill. And though my heart was broken, I was starting to see that maybe, just maybe, I had to let her go to find that happiness. It was the hardest decision I'd ever had to make, but I knew it was the right one. After making the decision to end things with Lisa, I felt a strange mix of relief and despair. On one hand, I was finally free from the constant doubt, the lies, the betrayal. On the other, I was devastated by the loss of what I thought was our future together. I never imagined she'd do this, especially so close to our wedding day. It felt like my entire world had been flipped upside down overnight. But deep down, I knew I had to move on, no matter how much it hurt. I started planning my next steps. First, I had to get rid of her. Block her from my life completely. I changed my phone number, deleted her from all social media, and made a clean break. That was tough. I'd been so used to sharing my life with her, but I refused to let her control my emotions anymore. I wanted to rebuild myself piece by piece. I also reached out to some friends, told them what happened, and let them support me. Honestly, I've never been the type to ask for help, but this time I knew I needed it. The hardest part was dealing with the emotional fallout. I kept replaying everything, the good times, the bad times, her lies, the sex with Matt. I was angry at her for lying, furious at Matt for being such a scumbag, and I even felt guilty for trusting her so blindly. I kept asking myself why I didn't see it coming, why I didn't get out sooner. I felt like a fool, but I also knew that blaming myself wouldn't fix anything. I had to accept that this wasn't my fault. She made her choices, and I just happened to be the one who got betrayed. In the weeks that followed, I took a hard look at my life. I started focusing on myself, going to the gym, working on my career, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected. I had to rebuild my confidence piece by piece. It was the most painful thing I've ever done, but also the most necessary. I learned that I couldn't change what she did, but I could change how I responded. I refused to let her define who I was. I was going to heal, even if it took a long time. One thing that helped was talking openly about everything. I didn't want to keep this pain bottled up. I told my brother, my parents, and a few close friends what I'd been through. Their support meant everything. They reminded me I deserved better, that I was worth more than someone who would betray me like that. Sometimes, just hearing that out loud made the pain a little easier to bear. I also started writing down my feelings, trying to process the betrayal in a way that didn't consume me. Eventually, I realized I wasn't the same person I was before Lisa. I'd been naive, trusting her blindly, believing we had a future. But now I knew I had to be more cautious, more aware, more careful about who I let into my life. I didn't want to be that guy who got played again, but I also didn't want to shut myself off completely. I just wanted to find someone who truly cared, who wouldn't betray me like she did. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away and start fresh. No matter how much it hurts, no matter how much you loved her, some betrayals cut so deep that fixing everything isn't an option. And that's okay. Moving on is hard, but it's also necessary if you want to find happiness again. I know I'm still healing, still trying to understand what went wrong, but I'm slowly getting there. And someday I hope to trust again, not just anyone, but the right person. Someone who won't make me question everything I ever believed in. Looking back now, I realize that this whole experience has changed me in ways I never expected. I used to believe in fairy tales, in the idea that love was enough to get through anything. But I've learned that trust isn't a given. It's something you earn, something fragile that can shatter in seconds if you're not careful. Lisa's betrayal showed me that sometimes the person you love the most can also be the one who hurts you the deepest. The biggest lesson I've taken away is that self-respect matters more than any relationship. I refuse to stay in a situation where I'm constantly doubting, where I feel used and discarded. I've come to understand that being alone is better than being with someone who doesn't respect or value me. That realization was painful, but it's also freeing. It's made me realize I need to prioritize myself, my feelings, my boundaries. I've also learned the importance of honesty, both with myself and others. I used to ignore my gut feelings, brush aside red flags because I didn't want to believe the worst. Now I listen to that voice inside. If something feels wrong, I stop and examine it. No more turning a blind eye just to keep the peace. Because truth, no matter how ugly, is always better than living in denial. The healing process isn't finished. There are days when I feel the sting of her betrayal all over again, when the pain resurfaces like a wound that refuses to heal, but I remind myself that pain is part of growth. It's what teaches us what we deserve and what we won't tolerate anymore. I know I'll get through this, even if it takes time. And I hope others who find themselves in similar situations remember, you don't have to accept betrayal as an unavoidable part of life. You have the power to choose how your story ends. Now, I'm focusing on rebuilding myself piece by piece. I've started dating again cautiously because I know I need to trust again someday. But I also know I'll be more careful, more aware of who I let into my life. I'll never forget what Lisa did, but I refuse to let her destroy my capacity to love. That's part of healing too, learning to open your heart again, even after it's been broken. Most importantly, I want to say this: never let anyone make you feel like you're less than you are. Never accept betrayal just because you love someone. Because at the end of the day, your happiness and your self-respect are what matter most. That's the lesson I carry with me now. And no matter how painful the journey, I know I'll come out stronger on the other side.